Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the District 2 Republican Congressional Runoff Debate. I'm Lieutenant Governor Todd Lamb and I'll be your moderator this evening. We're coming to you live from Baird Hall Performance Studio at Rogers State University in Claremore, Oklahoma. And tonight's forum is brought to you in part, by the Claremore Chamber of Commerce, Rogers State University, and the Claremore Daily Progress, RSU's Department of Communications, and RSU Public Television. The format is as follows. Earlier, a coin toss was held and determined the order of speaking. First, 60 seconds will be given to each candidate for opening statements. Then questions will be asked by me in rounds 1 and round 3, and in round 2, candidates will have the opportunity to ask questions of each other. And for closing statements, each candidate will be given 60 seconds. There's no opportunity for rebuttal following closing statements, so candidates, please refrain from personal attacks or charges. All candidates will have equal time to respond and will not be allowed to interrupt one another. I will interrupt the candidates if I believe they are straying from the subject, and if necessary, the question will be restated. There will be a timekeeper who will use color-coded cards to alert the candidates of their time. Each candidate will adhere to the time allotted for each question. With that, let's begin. Our forum with introductions. George Fott and Becky, his wife of 29 years, have 3 grown children, all born and raised in Muskogee. George is a committed Christian and devoted family man and a lifelong resident of the 2nd District. George is the owner and operator of a carpet cleaning business in eastern Oklahoma for the past 24 years. In 2006, George was elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives. Mark Wayne Mullen is an eastern Oklahoma native, businessman, rancher, family man, and youth leader in his church. He was raised in the Adair County community of Westville. A graduate of Stillwell High School, Mark Wayne and his wife Christy own Mullen Farms, Mullen Properties, and Mullen Services. Mark Wayne has been married to Christy, his high school sweetheart, for 14 years, and they have 3 children. Winner of the coin toss was Mark Wayne Mullen, and he chose for George Fott to go first, and he will have 60 seconds. Now we go to questions for the candidates. After the candidate answers the initial question, his opponent will have a chance to comment. Then he will have a chance to give the last word. The first question goes to George Fott. But before we do that, we will go to opening statements.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the folks here at RSU and Governor Lamb for coming and allowing this to happen. We thank you for all the sponsors. You know, our country is facing some serious issues that deserve to be talked about. They deserve to have some answers. And I think that I'm well positioned for that. I've lived in this district for 49 of my 50 years. I've a family here, married almost 30 years to my wife, 3 grown kids. I've had a successful carpet cleaning business. I also have the legislative experience of 6 years at the State House. And I think the citizens of the 2nd District deserve to have someone who is proven, someone who is conservative, and someone that they can trust to be their next congressman in Washington, D.C., and I hope to be able to be that.
And now, for opening statement, we go to Mark Wayne Mullen.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, or Acting Governor, I guess I should say. I just want to tell my wife thank you for giving me the opportunity to spend the last year on the campaign. Of course, the sacrifice that my 3 kids made, Jim, Andrew, and Lara, they're not able to be with us because my boys are at wrestling camp. But, you know, I got in this race a year ago because I was fed up. I was fed up with the regulations that the government continues to throw down on our companies, why they're trying to tell us that they're getting this economy back on track. I got fed up with the way that they're constantly telling me to run our business. And, you know, at the end of the day, I thought, if we're really going to make a change, then we got to send a different type of people up there. And so Christy and I entered the race, and we started traveling across the district. We started talking to people, and people were relating to what we're saying, and then we started hearing their stories. And sometimes when I would get tired, other people would share a story and just put more resolve and it put more desire in me to keep on going. And so I look forward to the opportunity to sit here in front of you and earn your vote today. Thank you.
If I could ask the audience, please don't apply. We understand the rules before the onset. I might give friendly reminders throughout the evening. The first question goes to George Fott. I'm sure you both have had time to read the Supreme Court's ruling on the Affordable Health Care Act. Will you work with your colleagues in Congress to repeal the act? And if so, what is your plan to address the issues that the Affordable Health Care Act tried to address?
Well, that's a great question, and actually I already have experience in the state level of pushing back against the federally mandated health care exchange. We defeated that in Oklahoma. I'm committed to defeating Obamacare, but let's replace it. Let's replace it with market-based, free market-based solutions, solutions that give individuals the control of their health care, solutions that keep that doctor-patient relationship intact. It's not about the government deciding who's best to provide care. It's about us as Americans. We deserve to have solutions and choices, insurance across state lines, high deductible plans. There's a whole host of things that we can do so that the government doesn't force socialized medicine down our throat.
You know, every time the government gets involved in something, they just mess it up worse. And for some reason, for them to get up there and say that they can fix our health care is just almost absurd. I mean, this bill alone is going to cost our company over $250,000 in new tax at a minimum. And for some reason, they think that's okay while they're trying to get this economy back on track. There's a whole host of solutions we can come up with, but the government isn't it.
Again, I go back to my experience. I fought this on the state level, defeated Obamacare in the health care exchange, and I'm prepared to continue that battle in Washington, D.C. for us Americans.
Thank you, Candace. The next question I will pose to Mark Wayne Mullen to go first. Tell us what you know about the Port of Catoosa and how you would secure or generate funding to help make changes needed to increase its development.
You know, Port of Catoosa is a strong backbone of Oklahoma to be able to get goods in and out. But we're hindered for the simple fact that we're fighting regulatory agencies about the depth of the channel to be able to bring in goods that we'd be able to ship back out. We're constantly fighting against the government as they're trying to tell us they're trying to get the economy back on track. We're constantly fighting them one step at a time. In order to get the Port of Catoosa to its full capacity, to be able to run the way it should, we need to dredge it, we need to get it 4 feet deeper, and we need to be able to fight against regulations that's constantly telling us that we can't do it. I mean, we're fighting against the EPA, we're fighting against the government that we're saying, hey, we're wanting to bring in infrastructure into the United States. We want to quit shipping everything out to other countries, but at the same time, when we try to do something about it, they say, whoa, no, you can't do that. We got to protect some fish that's in there that we got to make sure we don't harm.
Well, the great thing about that, in order to get to the Port of Catoosa, you've got to go past the Port of Muskogee. So that's been important for us. The dredging of the harbor from 9 to 12 feet is imperative to allow those barges to come. I'm on record sending resolutions to Washington, D.C. to dredge the channel deeper.
You know, it comes to really common sense at the end of the day. Do we really want to do something about it, or do we want to just sit there and talk about it? I wonder if this channel could have been built today. The answer would be no. How are we going to be able to expand our infrastructure if we can't even add to the depth of the channel that's already there?
This next question will begin with George Fott. What should be done to address illegal immigration, and do you support comprehensive reform?
Well, what we need to do is, first of all, have an immigration policy. I was one of 5 original authors of the Omnibus House Bill 1804. In fact, my portion of the bill was to make sure employers verified their employees through E-Verify that they weren't hiring illegals. Oklahoma had to react because the federal government has no policy in place. So we've got to, first of all, secure the borders and allow these states to enforce the laws that are there. I've been on record, and I've been fighting this fight in Oklahoma, that we need to make sure that we don't cheapen what it means to be an American. And let's don't cheapen what citizenship is. Citizenship is a privilege. It's not something you can gain by just being here.
Amnesty obviously is not the issue, or not a solution. There's no way we can even sit there and talk about it as long as we're talking about amnesty. We have to secure the border, and we have to fix the problem. For those that want to come over here and abide by our rules, let's fix the problem. Let's allow that paperwork process to happen. I mean, how in the world are we going to get the people that want to become legal over here legally if we can dig a tunnel faster than they can get here?
Again, it just goes back to enforcing the law. I've been on record helping Oklahoma enforce the law, and let's continue to put in policies that make sense, policies that protect Americans and American jobs.
For our last question of round one, we'll begin with Mark Wayne Mullen. If you agree that government spending is out of control, what specific departments, agencies, and/or programs of the federal budget will you fight to cut? Department
of Energy is a joke. They sit around and they continue telling us that they're trying to limit our dependency on foreign oil, but that's been around since '78 and our dependency has just grown. Department of Education, we know how to educate our children a lot better than Washington does, but we keep spending money with them over and over and again. We keep funding these regulatory agencies that they don't do anything except cost us more here on a local level. When you start talking about the EPA, how much damage is the EPA constantly doing to us? These regulatory agencies that are out of control, we need to rein them in by quit funding these agencies.
Well, I think there's several things we can do to cut. I mean, obviously, the EPA needs to be severely restricted in their influence that they have in our lives. How about the Department of Interior? They're locking up thousands and thousands of acres for purposes that are not benefiting America. And I'm all for bringing education back to Oklahoma, and let's let Oklahomans decide where the education choices ought to be made.
We've got to look at our back door, too. Before you can really get serious about looking or getting out of debt, we've got to start looking at what Congress themselves spend, how much we spend on our own salaries, how much we spend in our staff, what's our spending budget. Let's really get serious, start making cuts in our back door, and then start looking at regulatory agencies and make cuts there, too.
And that's the end of round one. Now to a special candidate-initiated round. We begin with candidate George Fott posing a question to Mark Wayne Mullen. Then each will have the opportunity to comment.
Mr. Mullen, what would be the first two bills that you would introduce into Congress?
I wouldn't. I'd be looking to cut the bills. There's so many bills already out there that no one can even interpret them to begin with. How about we start reining in the government that's got too large? Why in the world would you introduce something that we constantly have to fund anytime we introduce a bill? We need to start looking at regulatory agencies. We need to start looking at things that's hurting this country. We need to start looking at things that we're spending money on that there's no point in. And then before we can even think about introducing something new, let's figure out what we have in front of us.
That's an easy one for me. Repeal Obamacare, and then let's have some regulatory results in the rulemaking process. I've done it in Oklahoma as far as blocking administrative rules. I can do it in Washington, D.C.
So often we think that the job of a representative is to constantly introduce bills. What we're there to do is represent the people. And what's causing us the most problems right now? It's our government. That's what's causing us problems. We need to rein them in and stop introducing things and bring the government back to what it was meant to be.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, candidate Mark Wayne Mullen will pose a question to candidate Fott.
George, Ronald Reagan said that the 11th commandment should be never say something negative about a fellow Republican. And I would challenge you, George, to start running a positive campaign, and I would like to ask you to sign a pledge.
Well, first of all, I think the people of the 2nd District deserve to have answers. And I think that someone's words actually mean something. So it's for the individuals to answer for what they've said, and it's for the individuals and the people of the 2nd District to know the candidates. We need to make sure that we have all the evidence in front of us when we make a decision over where people stand and what they stand for. And that's what elections are all about. It's not a popularity contest. It's who's best qualified to be the next congressman.
You know, what it says is that you're willing to play politics as usual. And it's a shame that someone can take things out of context and put them out there the way that so many elective politicians that are more interested in their career do every day, rather than really staying focused and getting the right person in place.
It's to you to summarize and close.
I'm sorry. Well, like I said, I think someone's own words mean something. It's not for me to answer for what someone else has said. It's for them to answer and clarify what they mean when they say something in a public arena. This is running for Congress.
It is now turn for candidate Fott to pose a question to candidate Mullen.
Mr. Mullen, in 2009, your business was raided by the ATF, and there was a convicted felon there. Were you on record to say that you gave weapons to him? What is the situation of that investigation?
You know, this is more example of politics as usual. You know, obviously, I'm probably the very first employer that ever had an employee not be honest with him. I mean, that's absurd. There's no way I would do something on purpose for something that would hinder our company. 99.9% of our employees are great employees, but I had one that made a really bad decision, and George, you know it. And you're completely taking something out of context, and you choose to lie about something rather than be honest and truthful, because it just shows that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get this next pay raise that you're looking for.
Hey, if I could, audience, please, no outbursts and no comments.
Well, first of all, I think it's important that we know the truth. Police records and our documents that can be easily found. Go to mullensfacts.com. Look it up yourself. It's a public record.
Well, I hope then you, George, laid out the whole report, because evidently either one, you don't understand the police report, or two, you don't understand how to read one, or you choose to take something out of context. You know, I'm not willing to sit here and continue to play politics like this. Anybody can take shots at you. We're here to find the right person, elect the right person, and I'm showing you that I'm not that career politician. I just want to represent you.
For the again, audience, please, we don't have to remove anybody from the room, but if you please remain quiet so that we can hear from the candidates and not from anybody in the audience. For the last series of questions in this round, we'll go to candidate Mullen, who poses a question to candidate Fott.
You know, George, talking about taking things out of context, I mean, I guess I could sit here and continue to pick your votes apart too, but the truth is, I just want to know, you voted on many bills. What 2 votes would you change your vote on, and why?
Well, over 6 years, I've probably had a lot of votes that I might have wished I had done something different. But you know, I'm willing to stand for my votes. I'm willing to stand for what I've believed in. I've got a conservative record. I've been endorsed by a lot of conservative groups across this nation because they have looked at my record. You know, so for someone who doesn't know the system and know how many votes are before us, you know, I can't bring any up to mind right now, but like I said, I've got a proven conservative record that people can look at, and they can go find out what I believe in and what I voted for.
You know, in business, there's several decisions that you always like to go back and say, wow, that's a learning experience. There's several things that I can pull off right at the top of my head, because that's how we learn. We learn from mistakes, and we learn by, 1, admitting them, and we learn 2, by how we change it and do something different.
Once again, as a state legislator, it's easy for people to take pot shots at you because you've got a public record. I'll defend my public record any day in front of anybody at any time.
This completes the candidate-initiated round. We now move on to the 3rd and final round of questions. The first question goes to George Fott. Campaigns often are won or lost with witty sound bites that play well on talk radio. But once in office, you'll be expected to understand multidimensional, weighty issues, often having dire consequences. What about your experience prepares you to be a leader on the most critical issues facing our country in the next decade? And please address how, as a freshman congressman, you will impact change.
Sure, well, that's a great question. I think this just leads into my experience as a state legislator. I've had many issues that have been before me, issues of dire consequences, as the governor said. And I have the ability to bring both sides in and look at both sides and make the valued judgment of which is going to be best, which is going to be constitutional, which is one that we can afford in this country. We've got to take a look at the serious nature of everything in front of us. We want our country to succeed, and it's going to take someone who has the ability to understand the issues, articulate the problems, and solve those issues by going to work from day one.
You know, I know the issues not because I've voted on them. I know the issues because I've dealt with them. And I've hired people day in and day out, not by Republican or Democrat. It's because they're the right person. And by willing to go up and look at someone for who they are, not because the letter in front of their name is how we're going to get things done. Get rid of party politics, get down to the real issues, and let's start fixing the problems that face us.
Well, I mean, just last week, Mr. Mullen said he didn't understand health insurance exchanges because he was too busy. This job causes us to have to be diligent, to have to know the issues, and let's live by that creed, and let's know what we're talking about, and let's get to work.
Candidates, tonight this is the Republican runoff debate, but there are thousands of Oklahomans viewing this all across the 2nd District this evening. You're fighting for the Republican nomination, but then you'll head off to the general. How are you going to attract Democrat voters while maintaining your position on policies and issues?
Question goes to me.
Yes.
Okay. You know, it really doesn't have to do with attracting the voters. Oklahoma always has a tendency to elect the right person. We're looking for someone that doesn't have to try to relate, it's someone that is. And it's not a matter of me trying to pretend like I can relate with District 2. I mean, listen to the way I talk. Obviously, I'm from District 2, and people from around here, if we're Democrats, we're not Democrats because we like Pelosi. We're not Democrats because we like Obama. They're Democrats because that's the way the family's always been. They've always been Democrats. And so it's not so much as sticking to the fundamental factors of the Republican Party, but it's to what common sense politics is. It's to what Oklahoma believes. You know, we're Christian people. We're the Bible Belt. We believe certain things, and we're willing to stand up and say, hey, I'm fed up, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to defend my right and defend what my family always believes in. So it's really not going to be an issue other than just being myself.
Well, this is just an easy question for me. I'm from Muskogee. I've been elected in a district that's 70% Democrat, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I can relate to the Democrat voters because they do care and they do matter. They need someone that they can trust, someone they can believe in. I've got the proven record to have already done that.
Mr. Mullen, to close and summarize.
It's very important that when we sit and we go to the voting box, not even August 26th or August 28th, but November 6th, that we're looking at the right person. Do we want to send the right person up there, or do we want to send the same type of person up there? You've got a choice come August 28th, and there's an obvious, clear difference between me and my opponent.
This next question will begin with candidate George Fott. What is the greatest foreign threat to the United States, and what should be done to neutralize it?
Well, I mean, I know there's a couple issues on this, and I know I've answered this once before, so I want to stay consistent. I think the breakdown of the family is one of the crucial things that breaks down our society. And we've got to make sure that we have strong families. Also, whenever we look at that, families are being attacked, and I know that we have radical Islam that is attacking the very fiber and the very core of American ideas. And I think that's probably our greatest threat, but it's solved through education. It's solved through families, building strong families. It's solved through families who pass on patriotism, that they know what their country believes in, they know what their country stands for, and they're willing to stand up and defend that and defend our Constitution.
We're our biggest threat because we're too busy being politically correct rather than calling a duck what a duck is. You know, if we really want to get something done, then we've got to quit worrying about the next election. We've got to stand up and say, you know, this is right and this is wrong, and quit playing party politics, get it out of the way, and do what a representative is supposed to do. It's make tough decisions, but it's right for the future of America.
Well, and I've done that. 6 years, I've been a representative of the people of my district, and I will be the same kind of consistent representative of the people of the 2nd District when you send me to Washington.
Well, for this final question of this round, we'll begin with Mark Wayne Mullen. As you both are aware, as well as anyone, this is a big district. Currently, the current congressman has district offices in Muskogee, Claremore, McAllister, and Durant. Will you keep the current locations or move to different towns and or cities?
You know, it's going to be a decision that's going to be made once we win November 6th, but the number one thing is that we don't do our job halfway. You know, I've never done anything halfway. It's either all in. And so when we start looking at where we're going to place offices, where are they best fit? Are we just wasting money because it sounds good to put one there? Or are we going to save money and put them in the right places? And my number one goal is to be the best representative that District 2 ever has. And that means I will not let one person outwork me. We're going to set a strong tone, we're going to set a strong pace, and there's two rules that my staff will have. One, no one's going to outwork us, and two, we're going to help as many people as we can.
I think the importance of the next congressman is that they know the entire district. I've traveled it, I've built relationships up and down this district. It's as different from north as it is to south, and I think you take that into account. You look at where the needs are, you look at where it's going to be work out the easiest. And if the offices where they are now work fine, then that's fine. But let's make sure the 2nd District is represented well.
You know, obviously, we made quite a few relationships, too. I mean, we came up with 43% of the vote in the 6-way race. And so we traveled it well, too. We made a lot of relationships. And we're going to have the right people on staff to make sure District 2 is represented.
Round 3 is in the books. Now to 1-minute closing statements. First, we go to George Fott.
Well, I hope that you've figured out that tonight it's not about me. It's not about my business. It's not about how this affects me. It's about how it affects us as a district. I love the 2nd District. I'm connected. And we want our children to have a future that they can be proud of. We want our children to succeed. And it's going to take the next congressman to be fully vetted, to be fully qualified, and to be fully capable of starting work from day one. This is too important to get wrong. This is too important to get wrong. We have serious issues that need to be answered. You've got to send qualified, proven, trusted conservatives, and that's me, George Fott.
If we're going to get serious about really getting this country back on track, then we've got to change the type of people we send. So often we've stereotyped our politicians. They got to look a certain way, they got to act a certain way, and we've seen that how it works, that we send someone that knows the system. But how about knowing our issues? Not because they've heard about it, it's because they've actually dealt with it. Because they've dealt with it in their own business. They've dealt with the EPA, they've dealt with the Department of Labor, they've dealt with unemployment, they've dealt with workers' comp. If we're really going to get serious about sending a different type of person up there, then we got to understand what a representative is. A representative is directly from us because they already know those issues, not because they're going to listen to us and they're going to be, you know, an open ear for us to cry on, but they're actually going to understand it so they can understand the issues when they get up there to go to work right then. I look forward to the opportunity of representing you. I look forward to the opportunity of the next 6 years of serving you. But we're not done yet. We need your votes August 28th. Thank you.
And that's it for the candidates. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you, and again, best Godspeed to our candidates. That concludes our debate this evening. Please get out and vote in the runoff election August 28th and let your voice be heard. We would like to thank Claremore Chamber of Commerce, Rogers State University, the home of the Hillcats, the Claremore Daily Progress, RSU Public TV, RSU Department of Communications. Thank you for watching.